Words of our Divine Mother from the book Words of the Mother, Volume 14, page 36, topic Yogic Action. Our Divine Mother says, from the standpoint of yoga, it is not so much what you do, but how you do it that matters most. It is not so much the act that matters, but the consciousness in which it is done. So all is well, and do not torment yourself. My love is always with you. Date 24th March 1964. Our Divine Mother says, from the point of view of a spiritual life, it is not what you do that matters most, but the way in which it is done and the consciousness you put into it. Our Divine Mother says, remember always the divine, and all you do will be an expression of the divine presence. When all your actions are consecrated to the divine, there will be no longer activities that are superior and activities that are inferior. All will have an equal importance, the value given them by the consecration. Whatever one does, it becomes useful if one puts a spark of true consciousness into it. The consciousness one has is much more important than the act one performs, and the most apparently useless acts can become very productive if they are performed with a true consciousness. It is the spirit and the consciousness from which it is done that makes an action yogic. It is not the action in itself. Next topic, aspects of sadhana. Question to the Divine Mother by a sadhak. Sweet Mother, I wish to get some light on the following points. First one, have I got the capacity, and are there any potentials in me to follow this path? For this, our Divine Mother says, this is not the question. The question is whether you have the necessary aspiration, determination, and perseverance, and whether you can, by the intensity and persistence of your aspiration, make all the parts of your being answer to the call and become one in the consecration. Next question. How should I continue my practice, my sadhana, after returning home? For this, our Divine Mother says, quiet yourself, and in the quiet, see and feel the Divine Mother. Next question, sweet Mother, how can I meditate? What is meant by opening? Where should I open? For this, our Divine Mother says, an inner purity and receptivity that freely lets in the Mother's influence. Begin with your heart. Let me repeat, an inner purity and receptivity that freely lets in the Mother's influence. Begin with your heart. Next question. Sweet Mother, I aspire for the higher life from above the head, but I always feel strained in the middle part of the forehead. What should I do? Mother says, do not strain yourself. Next question. How does this psychic being open, Mother? How to understand the psychic and vital beings in the Adhara? For this, the Divine Mother says, by the force of aspiration and the grace of the Divine Mother. Psychic being is your true being, the being that is in the heart, and that is the spark of the Divine Mother's own consciousness. Vital being is the part from which proceeds desires, anger, hunger, and dynamic activities having its physical basis around the navel. Our Divine Mother says, three things are indispensable to begin with: absolute sincerity in the whole being and its activities, complete self-surrender without any reservation, patient work on oneself, and at the same time a steady conquering of perfect, unshakable peace and equanimity. Our Divine Mother says our human consciousness has windows that open on the infinite. but generally men keep these windows carefully shut. They have to be opened wide and allow the infinite freely to enter into us and transform us. Two conditions are necessary for opening the windows. The first one is an ardent aspiration, and the second one is a progressive dissolution of the ego. The divine help is assured to those who set to work sincerely. Next question, sweet mother, what is the best method to find the divine who is in each one of us and in all things? Our divine mother says aspiration, silence, concentration in the solar plexus region. If need be, a prayer is addressed to the divine as follows. Say to the divine, I belong to you and I want to know you so that all that I do is nothing but what you want me to do. Let me repeat, I belong to you and I want to know you so that all that I do is nothing but what you want me to do. This is the prayer that needs to be addressed to the divine at every moment. Encourage only what leads quickly to the Lord and serves His divine purpose. Next topic, the examiners. Our Divine Mother says, the integral yoga consists of an uninterrupted series of examinations that one has to undergo without any previous warning, thus obliging you to be constantly on the alert and attentive. Three groups of examiners set up these tests. They appear to have nothing to do with one another, and their methods are so different, sometimes even so apparently contradictory, that it seems as if they could not possibly be leading towards the same goal. Nevertheless, they complement one another, work towards the same end, and are indispensable to the completeness of the result. The three types of examinations are those set by the forces of nature, those set by the spiritual and the divine forces, and those set by the hostile forces. These last are the most deceptive in their appearance, and to avoid being caught unaware and unprepared requires a state of constant watchfulness, sincerity, and humility. The most commonplace circumstances, the events of everyday life, the most apparently insignificant people and things all belong to one or one of these kind of examiners. In this vast and complex organization of tests, those events that are generally considered the most important in life are the easiest exams to undergo because they find you ready on your guard. It is easier to stumble over the little stones in your path because they attract no attention. Endurance, plasticity, cheerfulness and fearlessness are the qualities needed for the exams of physical nature. Aspiration, trust, idealism, enthusiasm, generous self-giving for spiritual exams. Vigilance, sincerity, and humility are for the exams from the hostile forces. And do not imagine that there are, on the other hand, people who undergo the examinations on the other people who set them. Depending on the circumstances and the moment, we are all both examiners and examinees, and it may happen that one is at the same time both examiner and examinee, and the benefit one derives from this depends both in quality and quantity on the intensity of one's aspiration and the awakening of one's consciousness. To conclude, a final piece of advice: never set yourself up as an examiner, for while it is good to remember constantly that one may be undergoing a very important exam, it's extremely dangerous to imagine that one is responsible for setting exams for others. That is the open door to the most ridiculous and harmful kinds of vanity. It is the supreme wisdom which decides these things and not the ignorant human will. Each time you have to make progress and you have to undergo an exam. In ancient times, there were many exams, but now there is no test, no trial. But if you see the truth, you will find it here. It is more difficult. There, the disciple knew that he was undergoing a period of trial. After that, he has passed the test. But here, you have to face life. You're watched at every moment. It is not only your outer actions that count, but each and every thought or inner moment, every action is noticed. It is not what you do in the solitude of the forest, but what what you do in the thick of the battle of life. This is very important. So are you ready to submit yourself for these tests? Are you ready to change yourself completely? You have to throw off your ideas, ideals, values, interests and opinions. Everything will be learnt anew. If you're ready for all this, then take a plunge. Otherwise, do not try to step in. The whole life is a sadhana. It is a mistake to cut it off into bits and say this is sadhana and this is not. Even your eating and sleeping should be a part of sadhana. Everything can be a part of sadhana, but depends on the inner attitude. Naturally, if one lets himself be invaded by the Western atmosphere, favor to the sadhana. But even in the most materialistic milieu, if one retains one's aspiration, one's faith in the divine life, the sadhana should continue. These are the words of our Divine Mother to be followed.